Hello everyone. This story is about what if Naruto was Itachi's half-brother and got betrayed by Kurenai. Later in the story he gets with Yugito, and he is super strong. Hope you like it. Let's start. The day was young, the sun was rising, and the birds were chirping. We find the road to Konoha's northern gates occupied by 4 people. A 6'4" blonde male with long blonde hair tied in a ponytail down his back. A red and black jacket with the kanji for toad sage on the back and the headband with spikes and the kanji for oil on his forehead. The next person was a 5'9" tall blonde woman with long blonde hair wrapped in bandages down her back wearing a purple schemed outfit missing the midsection. She had a sizable C-cup bust and a smile that made her look like an angel. In the woman's arms was a 2-year-old toddler. She had 2 whisker marks on either side of her face with sun-kissed blonde hair at shoulder length and bright blue eyes. All in all, she was a 2-year-old female version of Naruto. The last man was the same height as the first, but with pure white hair. He wore similar clothes to the first and had the same headband as him. These people were Naruto and soon-to-be Yugito Uchiha Namikaze, Jiraiya the Gallant and the daughter of Naruto and Yugito, Kushina, named after her grandmother Kushina Namikaze. The gate guards were doing nothing as per usual when the group of 4 just walked past them. They both held their mouths open as they saw the legendary Genin walk through the gates to his hometown. Kotetsu looked to his partner in crime with a small grin. Things are going to get interesting around here now, don't you think? Sure do. Wonder what will happen when those 2 meet. A shiver went up both men's spines. It was bound to be explosive and not very good for one side of the conversation. Back with the group, Naruto had his 3 Tomoed Sharingan active to remember all the small details of his first time back in Konoha since that fateful night almost 5.5 years ago when he was betrayed by his dearest friend. He sighed to himself. He was starting to get depressed with this place, and then he felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked back to see his girlfriend Yugito and his darling daughter in her arms, giggling away trying to reach out and grab a butterfly that just went past. "Stop going Uchiha on me. I can't handle your depressed ass," she said in a tone that clearly held a lot of mirth. She always had a way to cheer him up. It was uncanny. "Fine, Kushina-chan, want to go meet Bachan? What about your Aji-san?" he said whilst looking at Kushina. Both parents smiled when she stopped what she was doing and shouted yeah, which was her best attempt at saying yes to date. "Alright then, let's go." Before he could even start to move in the direction of his house, a voice called out in an attempt to rain on his parade. "Not now, Naruto, we have to speak with whoever the Hokage is." "Not today, sensei, I don't want to return to that building today. How about tomorrow after breakfast, my treat, just drop by the house, eh?" "Fine, you can go, I will speak with the Hokage about it and we will see you tomorrow." Naruto stood straight with a mock salute before grabbing his daughter and girlfriend and shining towards a place he hadn't been in such a long time, home. Arriving outside his home, wanting to surprise his brother and mother, he smiled. He missed this place. It was his only sanctuary when he was younger and training, his peace and quiet, his perfection. Sure, he had the spot on top of his father's head, but that could be interrupted at any time by ninjas such as ANBU operatives in search of him. Placing his hand atop the lock and bleeding onto it, he heard a slight clicking sound signifying the gate had been opened. He carefully opened the gate and his eyes roamed his home in suspense, hoping that it was still the saved bit of heaven he remembered. His eyes fell onto the front garden. Oh, how he remembered the days after the Uchiha massacre when his mother wouldn't leave the house, and when she finally did, she left for gardening. Naruto himself had no issues with this. He could tell that she needed a way to cope with what was happening, and this was it, so he left her to it, and the garden became beautiful. He couldn't take it any longer, and as ran inside his home, it all looked the same. "Ka-chan, I'm home," he shouted, hoping she was at home. His hopes were well founded when he heard loud footsteps indicating running above him, showing that she was upstairs. She hadn't aged at all, Naruto thought as she came running in the kitchen, still looking like she was 20 when she was closer to 35. He couldn't help but smile when he saw her. She couldn't believe it. Her baby boy was standing in front of her in the kitchen, smiling at him. There was a blonde woman and baby beside him, but that was for later. For now, she was just going to hug her son for life and hoped he would never leave again. "What time do you call this, young man? 2.5 years late?" he said, shrinking down into himself, which Yugito found amusing, since she knew how strong he was. "Damn right. If I hadn't missed you so much, I would spank you." Deciding to change the subject before it became uncomfortable, Naruto had a bright idea. "Hey Ka-chan, did you know you're a grandmother now?" "What?" "Yep, meet my daughter and your granddaughter, Kushina Uchiha Namikaze." It was then at that moment in time that she finally paid close attention to the people in the room. The little girl in the woman's arms had to be about 2 years old and had whisker marks on her face like her father. She stopped all her scolding and started walking towards an uncomfortable Yugito before rushing her and grabbing the little girl, trying to squeeze her to death via hug. Ka-chan, I think she needs to breath. Mikoto noticed that the girl was starting to go blue and let her to. She fell onto the floor on her feet and stood for a few seconds before falling backwards on her bottom and smiling at her grandmother. Before you go hugging her to death again, this is Yugito. She is the mother of Kushina and will be my wife eventually. I love her with all my heart and will do anything to protect her, he said, smiling as he hugged a blushing Yugito to his chest. Mikoto obviously awed at the sight, but inside, she was incredibly happy that her son had found love. She, like everyone else, had heard about Kurenai's mission to seduce him and thought that he would never find love in the village. Apparently she was right, considering Yugito had a scratched headband on. Where's Tachi and I? He rejoined ANBU whilst you were training because he was bored. Should have just taken a genin team. That's what I said, but apparently the thrill of battle thing you had was building up, and with ANBU he could help the village and battle tough opponents. I bet he's gotten really strong. He was wanting a spar with you when you got back, so he wanted to improve since he had no doubt that you surpassed him a while ago. Does the village know about you yet, Ka-chan? Yes, they all had mixed reactions. Some wanted to hurt me because my son was the demon brat, she said whilst sensing her son let out an overwhelming ki that could bring most jonin to their knees if it was aimed at them. Luckily it wasn't aimed at anyone in particularly, so she just smiled. His son was still incredibly overprotective of people he loved and family. Others thanked me because of what you did just before you disappeared in the invasion. They tried to force me into the CRA, but I told them that if you found out along with Itachi, then they would have a serious situation on their hands, and the entire council don't want a repeat of last time. She finished, whilst taking a breath and watching Naruto smirk. What happened to the old man? He stepped down after sending a team after Tsunade to become the 5th Hokage. How about you let your son treat you, his daughter, and his fiancée to some ice cream in town? It's a hot day and we can relax. She nodded. It was just starting the day and incredibly hot already, and was bound to become even hotter later on. Her son cheers whilst picking Kushina up and placing her on his shoulders whilst she was all the time giggling at the attention. He looked to his mother and held out his hand whilst he did the same with Yugito. Kushina was holding his hair for dear life as per usual, and they all shunshined via crows to the center of town in an alleyway. To the dango shop, he said whilst Yugito was shaking her head at his antics. She could never get entirely used to them due to his unpredictability. She ended up just going with the flow. He suddenly stopped before leaving the alley and looked over to his mother. 1 second, Ka-chan, he said before going through some hand seals and saying lowly, Kuchios no Jutsu. Smoke appeared, and through the smoke you could see a human figure around 20 years of age with the blood-red hair that most the Uzumaki clan were born with. About time, Naruto, I was wondering when you were going to summon me, she said, annoyed at being locked up again after so long. Sorry, Hikari-chan, had to get into Konoha, and you would have been an incredible red flag. She nodded understandingly whilst Makoto watched in amazement. Who are you? Everyone looked towards Makoto. Allow me to introduce you to her, Ka-chan. This is Hikari, or better known as the Kyubi. Makoto just nodded. She had long been informed of Kyubi's role as the puppet in the attack nearly 17 years ago, so she didn't care that much, and her son seemed to trust her a lot, which also helped. Grabbing Yugito's hand and walking with the group, they started to head towards the dango shop. People were beginning to notice Naruto now and were greeting him with Uchiha-sama and a bow. It sickened him tremendously. Not even 5.5 years ago, they scorned him and tried to abuse him both physically and emotionally because he was a Jinchuriki, and then all of a sudden he had the Sharingan, so he must be treated with respect. It was the height of hypocrisy to him. People were staring at the child on his head and the woman he had his left hand entwined to and were starting to get suspicious. She had a scratched Kumo headband on, and people were getting nervous because of it, but no one, shinobi or civilian alike, dared to move against her because she was with Naruto and held hands with him. The female civilian and most of the female shinobi population all awed at the scene as Naruto carried the little girl on his shoulders and constantly watched her in case something happened, as the little girl was looking at everything excitedly. Arriving at the dango shop, the waiter led them all to a booth at the back of the restaurant away from the crowd so that they could eat in peace. None of them noticed Kurenai Yuhi and the 3 other ice queens sitting on the opposite side of the restaurant eating. Said ice queens were now in conversation about Naruto since he had just entered. Maybe you should apologize to him, Kurenai? Anko asked. She had seen what he had done for the village and was proud to have been a shinobi at that point in time watching him fight. Asterisk snort asterisk like he would accept it. Kurenai snorted uncharacteristically. I think he would, he seems quite relaxed with the two blondes, the mysterious redhead and his mother. Yuga replied calmly. She had been one of his guards growing up and was happy with how he turned out, but when she learned of Kurenai's betrayal, she refused to speak with her for weeks afterwards. She considered Naruto like a little brother, just like the rest of her squad and his protectors did. Fine, I will go apologize. She finally said, although hesitantly. It was understandable she broke the man's heart when he was younger and was not looking forward to his reaction. Yuga nodded, accepting this as she watched her walk over to the table. Naruto and his family were all laughing at some of the stories Makoto was telling of what happened when they were away during the trip, when they all noticed Kurenai walking over, albeit nervously. Yugito knew who this was due to the description that Naruto gave her and held his hand tightly whilst smiling. She was the one to win his heart, but she was second best in the race, and this woman squandered it. For that she disliked the woman greatly. Naruto sighed and looked up. Kurenai. Naruto. You're looking good. He said awkwardly, not really understanding what to say at this point in time. Thank you, I want to. She stopped when he raised his hand. Listen, it was a mission, and although I hate the fact that it was given, I will not hate you for it, but what I will hate you for is if you please don't leave me alone. I am having family time for the first time after 5.5 years, I think I deserve it. He finished, she nodded and left him alone whilst he let out a sigh of annoyance. Well done, Sochi, it takes a lot to be the bigger man. His mother said whilst the others agreed. Thanks, let's just carry on and have some fun. He said with a small smile. He had missed everything about this, and if he didn't fall in love and had Kushina not been born, he would have been sure he would have seen it as a wasted trip. They continued for another half hour just sharing stories when his mother asked how he and Yugito met. He was about to answer when a shadow was looming over him. He ignored it and started his story, but before he could really get into it, the sound of a throat clearing in the background was heard. He grunted in annoyance and turned around to face it, whilst Makoto was thinking that the grunt must be hereditary, since all Uchiha males seemed to grunt when annoyed. Yes? You were meant to report in. That can wait till tomorrow. No, it really can't. Yes, it can. No, it can't. You will come with me now and report it. Nope, tomorrow, I'm enjoying family time which you are interrupting. He said, starting to get annoyed with the fact that this person was still here. They were starting to draw a crowd now, apparently this woman was famous. Do you know who I am? No. Well, let me tell you, I am. She stopped when he interrupted her. Listen, if you are searching for me and considering I had a genjutsu over the table to make people not notice us, then that means you have Kage level chakra reserves, but you also fit the description of this Tsunade person that sensei mentioned a lot. Going by this, I would presume you are the Hokage that replaced the old man after his tremendous fuck up before I left. Now I presume proper introductions are in order. How about you go first? He said with a disarming smile that made women's heart melt. Tsunade was beginning to lose her temper with this blonde brat in front of her, and the ever-growing vein in her forehead was proof of that. I am Tsunade Senju of the Senju clan and 5th Hokage of the Leaf Village. She said in a proud voice. Naruto smiled a bit and nodded in understanding. Fair enough, Tsunade Senju of the Senju clan. I am Naruto Uchiha of the Uchiha clan. He said whilst activating his Sharingan before morphing it into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. There was a tense silence for a minute or two before Naruto continued. Now let me explain something to you. I don't care who you are or what position you hold. It is all meaningless to me, Miss Senju. But, and this is a big but, you are interrupting my family time with my daughter, fiancé, mother and close family friend that I consider a sister in all but blood, and if you don't stop interrupting until tomorrow when me and Jiraiya will come by your office and report, then I will activate Susanoo and throw you from here to Moon Country for interrupting something that I haven't had the chance to do for 5.5 years. He said in a monotone voice that many cringed at whilst the vein in Tsunade's forehead grew to almost breaking point. Listen here, brat. She said whilst he whispered something to Yugito, who nodded and placed her hands over Kushina's ears before Naruto unleashed a god-awful killing intent and said in a dangerous voice with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan ablaze, am I going to have to throw a bitch? She said nothing whilst sweating under the ki. You can't stand the killing intent, yet you were happy to throw yours around earlier. I will be at your office for 9 a.m. tomorrow with Jiraiya. Yugito and Kushina, now leave us. He said before many shunshins were heard and they were suddenly left alone again. That is a dangerous game you played, Sochi. Mikoto said whilst being slightly impressed at how much her son had grown. I haven't seen you in 5.5 years, no one is going to interrupt us again. He said with a smile. She nodded and they all continued. Naruto eventually asked why Sasuke left, which she was surprised to know he knew about. Mikoto sighed, for what seemed like the 100th time in the past day. Apparently her son made things troublesome around Konoha. He left about a month after you. He wasn't happy about all the positive attention you were getting even when you weren't here, and he heard that you were going to train with the Sannin, so he thought he would do the same. Unfortunately, he killed two Chunin guards at the gates at the time of his escape. A team was sent to retrieve him, but they left too late and he arrived in Rice Country to Orochimaru. Orochimaru-chan has already made it to the top position in my shit list even about the Akatsuki, because the fool tried to brand both Yugito and Kushina with the curse seal. I saved them before he had the chance, but I may or may not have totally obliterated his base at the same time as wounding him. That team is going to die, slowly and painfully, but I didn't see Sasuke, so he must have been at another base at the time. If I saw him, then I would have beat him up and brought him back to Konoha. He finished. She nodded and understood. Nobody messed with his family, that was his #1 rule, and Orochimaru broke it. Enough of this depressing story. We've been here for around 4 hours now just catching up and it's about 3 in the afternoon. We need to get stuff for Kushina-chan like a crib, food, diapers, and whatever else we need. He said and stood up whilst paying the bill. Kushina stumbled over to him and held his hand. He looked down to see a small Kushina smiling up at him. She had started to learn to walk not that long ago and was quite good for her age. Kushina held her other hand for Yugito to grab and she was all too happy to oblige. They left with Kushina walking slowly and between them swinging every third step to catch up. Many onlookers were smiling at the display of affection. It took the rest of the day for Naruto and the others to buy and put together and it was starting to get dark, so they made dinner and went to bed. Both Naruto and Yugito were rudely awoken by a toad using a low-level Sway Tunjutsu on them. Erosenin, how many times have I told you not to do that? I thought we got you out of this Erosenin crap, kid. Well, it's back to Erosenin when you wake me up at 5 in the morning using a Sway Tunjutsu, he moaned. Whatever, so I heard you met Tsunade yesterday? What did you describe her as, a Spitfire, was it? That doesn't do justice to her temper. Tell me about it. He drawled. Anyway, time to get up, breakfast to have, meeting to meet, and of course my personal favorite, there is research to be searched. He grinned at the end. Remember what I said about peeking on me and Yugito-sensei, it will not end well for you. He said seriously. Jiraiya nodded, knowing from experience that Yugito was brutal on purpose peeping on her. She only let Naruto do that. He sighed, fine, let's go have breakfast. Naruto nodded before walking downstairs in only pajama bottoms with no top, leaving Yugito to wake up and get their daughter ready whilst he went to make breakfast for the family. 20 minutes later, and Mikoto came down dressed for the day, having heard the disturbance earlier waking her up. Seeing the man her son labeled as Erosenin before she smiled and thanked him for taking care of her son. Speaking of whom had just finished making everyone breakfast when Yugito came down carrying a still half-asleep Kushina. She didn't appear to be a morning person and wanted to go back to bed. Yugito gave Naruto a kiss on the cheek before sitting beside him and started to eat her breakfast, but not before placing Kushina in a high chair. Naruto smiled. He loved this feeling of having a family and a daughter, and it filled the void that formed when he first started training, trying to forget about Kurenai. 2 hours later, dishes were done and everyone had ate. Naruto got dressed and begun his morning routine. He long since maxed out his chakra weights at 230 kilograms because of his advanced healing factor, and although they provided a big speed increase, he often felt that he hadn't gotten the full effect of his weight training. Finishing with a nice shower, he proceeded to get dressed for the day in his usual gear and placed a few scrolls in his pouch before going to get Yugito and Kushina to take to the Hokage's office to most likely get shouted at by said Hokage for threatening her yesterday. He cringed. He did not like the way that the day was looking so far. Placing Kushina on his shoulders again and leaning over to give Yugito a kiss on the lips like he usually does in the morning, both stopped when they heard giggling and the sounds of pencil writing on a notepad, which quickly stopped when a slapping sound was heard when Mikoto's hand hit Jiraiya's face. Smiling to each other and walking out with hands intertwined, leaving a red-faced Jiraiya behind, they started walking through the streets to the tower, confident that Jiraiya would catch up, which he did by the time that they were in the town center. Reaching the office just after 9, they all walked in and passed the secretary, which already had orders surrounding the group. Walking into the office to look at an angry Tsunade, in my defense, it was Sensei's fault, Naruto said, flatly trying to shift the blame. He didn't even notice the elders in the room. Not caring, we will have words later, but for now we have a council meeting to attend, she said, not at all sounding interested. Naruto groaned and would have thrown his head back if it didn't mean that his daughter would fall on the floor. He nodded and followed on as Tsunade and the elders lead the group into the council chambers. All chatter stopped upon his entry, which annoyed him. He didn't like having this special treatment, but if it meant a better environment for his daughter to grow up and live in, then he would bear it. Order, order, Tsunade said, banging a gavel-like object. We are here today because one of our own has returned, albeit later than expected, she said, whilst glaring at a certain white-haired toad sage. We all have some questions, but first, who is the blonde woman and child next to you? My fiancé and daughter. He said flatly, causing uproar in the chambers. What do you mean fiancé and daughter? You swore that you wouldn't get married last time you were in the chambers in front of us. A pink-haired civilian screeched at having all her plans ruined. I said I wouldn't marry anyone from this village. She is clearly not from this village. He said monotonously whilst pointing to her scratched Kumo headband. Who is she? Another councilman asked. Yugito ni, former jonin of Kumogakure, but defected when they sold her out, leaving her for dead. Sold out how? That is not your concern. He replied, getting raised eyebrows from several people, including some shinobi council members. I beg to differ, boy, a rather arrogant council member stated. Naruto stood impassively staring at the member before smirking. What business would a civilian like you have with a shinobi like me and Yugito here? He's right, this is clearly a shinobi matter. It's logical to assume that they do not wish to explain due to some of the civilians' past experiences with secrets. One Shibi Aburame explained. All shinobi in the room nodded in acceptance. Fine then, who is the girl? My daughter, Kushina Uchiha Namikaze. When she is old enough, I will let her choose if she wants either name or both. He said whilst looking at a certain Hyuga whose Byakugan was active. Hayashi, stop looking at my daughter with your Byakugan. That is an invasion of privacy if I've ever seen one. Everyone looked to Hayashi, who quickly deactivated his bloodline. The girl's chakra levels are low genin level already. He said, odd and wondering what kind of beast the couple had as a daughter. Yes, I had to seal off her bloodline for the time being. She was born with so much chakra that it was active at birth, hence it had to be sealed until she learned to control chakra. He said, leaving the council stunned. We must put her and you in the CRA. Several civilians all but screamed. No. He said, just completely ignoring them. Eventually, it got too much for him to ignore, and he unleashed the same level of killer intent that he aimed at Tsunade yesterday. My daughter and my family are off limits. This is the last warning. He said in a dangerous tone. One of the civilians thought they would try and get one over on him since he clearly was winning in the political arena. I assume your fiancé is here to claim asylum. He said, to which Naruto nodded. We can't just let any missing mean into Konoha, you must understand. Naruto snorted, the request is but a formality, she has the backing of the Uchiha and Namikaze clans, and therefore cannot be denied. He said whilst most shinobi nodded. Naruto finally looked around the room, but his brother wasn't there. He must have been on mission, he concluded, and asked as such. Yes, but they are for private ears. Tsunade interrupted, clearly not wanting to hear the civilians go on about his clan's restoration. She may not like the Gaki, but he sure knew how to handle the council. Actually, one more question that can be voiced to the council. Why were you 2.5 years late in returning? She said, and several heads perked up. That was my bad. Me and Yugito found out she was pregnant and went to MT Mayaboku where I trained and looked after her. It was a pain going down to buy food and stuff, then being reverse summoned again, but it was worth it. I'm happy we left before we started feeding Kushina solid food, otherwise Ma and Pa would have tried to feed her fly soup. He said with a shiver, getting sympathetic nods from the shinobi. Since you've been away for 5.5 years, you will need to have a match against someone to show your skill level. She said, getting a nod from Naruto to continue. Your old sensei Kakashi seemed rather eager, but I have foregone that arrangement because Sarutobi sensei called in a favor. Apparently he wants to fight you. Tsunade said, getting the attention of almost everyone. After all, the fabled god of shinobi, as he was called, didn't just want to fight anyone. Even in his old age he could still kill most people in the village. Naruto paused for a minute before grinning like a madman and starting to laugh to himself before it echoed through the chambers. I'll be waiting at your office, Tsunade. He said, getting a grumble from said blonde about Gakis and respect. Naruto was calmly waiting inside the Hokage's office with the old Hokage's guards all saying hello to the young man that they used to protect and guard as a little brother. Yugao apparently had gotten married in the aftermath of the Suna/Oto invasion. Both her and her fiancé Hayate felt that life was too short because of his brush with death and her ANBU career. He made a mental note to buy them some flowers later and apologize for being late to her wedding. She wasn't currently present in the office of the Hokage due to falling pregnant a month beforehand and being placed on the off-duty list until her child was born. Naruto himself was ecstatic to hear the good news. He enjoyed fatherhood and couldn't wait until she could enjoy being a mother. Itachi was currently out on mission with his new ANBU squad after being reassigned from the Hokage's protection detail to field work because Konoha was in need of people with his skills. According to Genma, the council had tried on several occasions to get him to take a genin team in hopes of passing down jutsu that were taught to him and stolen from several people including himself. Kakashi was on the window ledge reading his book, just listening with a smile on his face. He had missed Naruto. He was his sensei's son and a little brother to him. He was family, and family was something he missed after his father's death and his adoptive father's death. His thoughts were interrupted when the Hokage stormed into the office fuming mad, thus making him grin more. "I hope you know the shitstorm you just caused for me, brat. I made the council know their place, thus giving you more power that you should have already had, and at the same time warned them off my family? Yes, I know, and I would do it again," he said calmly whilst taking Kushina from Yugito and bouncing her on his knee. The Hokage and her assistant were both struggling to not scream about how cute she was, so she decided to change the subject. "Sensei is waiting at training ground 7 for us. I will be there soon, I just need to make a quick stop," he said seriously. "Fine, brat," she said, and she disappeared in a shunshin towards the training ground. "Come Yugito-chan, Kushina-chan and Ka-chan, we need to make a quick stop at a friend's house before we make our way to the training grounds. Kakashi, feel free to turn up at the training grounds to watch." He finished confusing most people whilst the copy ninja smiled and opened the window to give a nod of affirmation before catching a book that was thrown at him. "Sensei's latest, enjoy." He spoke before he turned round and grabbed his family, disappearing in a red flash of light and reappearing at his house. "We will pick you up in 10 to 15 minutes, Ka-chan," he said, to which he got a nod and a smile from his mother. Yugito held his outstretched arm and they disappeared in a flock of crows, showing an old classic from when he was younger. They both arrived at the Yamanaka flower shop to see Inoichi, the old clan head of the Yamanaka clan. His daughter took over when she turned 16 so he could retire and drink away his life with his friends. "Hey Inoichi," he smiled to the older man. Whilst he may not have trusted him when he was younger and still didn't to a degree, the man had never done anything to him or his family, and that in itself made him smile. "Oh Naruto, you're back. How was your trip? And who is this lovely young lady and little girl?" "The trip was great, I learnt so much and came back with much more. As for everything else, you should wait till Ino gets home from the meeting, it was all explained in there and I'm in a hurry, sorry." He apologized. "Fine, well what is it you need then? If I remember right, before I left you had a jutsu that your family used in this flower shop to change the color of plants without dyeing them?" he asked. "Yes, we still use it today, it's quick and cost efficient," he responded. "Good, I need 12 purple roses, please. Also, whilst we are at it, could you get me 1 white rose and 2 red roses, all separately packed of course." Inoichi nodded and went into the back to prepare the order whilst leaving the couple at the front. "What are the flowers for?" she asked. "The 12 roses are for Yugao as a congratulations for her marriage that I missed and also for her upcoming child. The 2 red ones are for Ka-chan and 2 sans gravestones, whilst the white one is for you since I know you like them." He smiled at her and she blushed a little, he was ever the romantic with her. "Ah, thank you Naruto-kun." She hugged him and kissed him on the lips whilst keeping a tight hold on her daughter whom Naruto passed to her earlier. He nodded in response. "We spoke when we were away about who the godparents for our child should be if something were to happen to either of us, and you said that I could pick them because you didn't know anyone. I wanted Yugao as her godmother since she helped raise and train me when I was younger with the rest of her squad, and Kakashi as her godfather, if that is alright with you?" he asked hopefully. She smiled brightly, she was wondering who he would pick, and the sword mistress and copy ninja of Konoha were great choices to raise and train her should something happen to them both. "Of course," she said, alleviating his fears. Inoichi came back with a bouquet of purple flowers in his right hand and 3 small packages in a bag on his left hand, which Naruto gladly paid for before saying goodbye and taking his family to the house that Heiei owned since Yugao would have moved in with him before their marriage. It was a modest 2-story house with a basement and a nice garden with some woods surrounding it, 4 bedrooms inside with all that was needed for an upcoming family that both Yugao and Heiei wanted. Knocking on the door and waiting for someone to answer, he heard 2 sets of footsteps. If he remembered right, then Heiei had a type of chakra disease from when he was younger that affected his lungs, hence the cough. He would have to fix that at some point. He wondered why Tsunade hadn't fixed it yet. She was a world-renowned mednin. He had several seals that he created in his time away and on MT Mayaboku that were meant for healing, and he was sure that one of them could fix it. The door opened and a man and woman appeared, the latter looking slightly pregnant with a little bump already beginning to show. He smiled and instantly hugged her carefully not to hurt the baby or damage the flowers. "Yugane, I missed you so much," he said smiling. "Who are you?" she asked, slightly scared due to her condition. Both Hayate and Yugito were watching with amusement since Hayate recognized the blonde straight away. Even though she saw him yesterday in the dango shop, she failed to recognize him close up with different clothes. "Oh, you hurt me so, Yugane. What other blonde gaki with the Sharingan did you help train with his chakra sabers when he was young?" It took a moment to click before, "Naruto." She shouted and hugged him back as if he was going to disappear. "Don't you ever go away for so long again without writing or visiting. We didn't know if you died or anything and it scared us," she said, slightly angry at the end. "Sorry Nachan, can we come in?" To which she responded by dragging him to the couch in the living room and telling him not to move. Shortly after, Yugito and Kushina followed and Yugao brought some tea for them. "So not that I'm complaining, but what do I owe the visit, Naruto?" "Well, I was speaking to Gunma to catch up and stuff. He mentioned you were married, which I totally missed and would have loved to be there for, by the way, but also you have a kid on the way." "Congratulations," he said whilst handing her flowers. "I knew purple was your favorite color, so I got them in the exact color just for you," he said smiling. She went and placed them in a vase of water and came back. "They are beautiful, Naruto. Thank you for them, and we understand why you missed our wedding," she said with Hayate nodding in the background. He still felt like he owed a debt to Naruto for saving his life when he was younger. "Now who's this young woman and the chibi?" "The woman is my fiancé Yugito ni, ex-Cloud Jonin and Jinchuriki of Nibi," he said, allowing for a dramatic pause whilst taking Kushina into his lap. "This chibi, as you called her, is our daughter, Kushina Uchiha Namikaze." He finished, getting looks of surprise from both Hayate and Yugao. She had seen the little girl with them yesterday but hadn't been introduced yet, and to find out she was his daughter was insane. She immediately clomped the poor girl, screaming about how cute she was. When she got off her, Naruto continued like it never happened. "This brings me to my second reason for this visit. Yugito doesn't know anyone from Konoha and was betrayed by Kumo, so if we were both to die, then our daughter would be an orphan of the state like I was until 5. I don't want that at all, so I was hoping that you would do me the honor of being her godmother," he finished with a bright smile. Yugao just sat there stunned whilst Hayate smiled. He would take care of their daughter if anything happened to them, simply because he owed Naruto for saving his life and being there for Yugao, but now she would also. "Of course, you idiot. You don't even have to ask." She smiled. "Good, then how about you come over sometime to get to know her? Hayate can come as well, obviously. Also, Hayate, sit down and lift your shirt for me," he said in a commanding tone. Hayate did what he asked, but wondered why. He felt Naruto placing a seal that he retrieved out of his pouch on his chest and using the ram seal to place chakra through it. "Hold on a minute, please." He nodded, and 2 minutes later, Naruto smiled. "Your disease is a chakra-based one, correct?" "Yeah, that's all the medics could tell me. The seal I just placed on you was a special one that I designed as part of a medic batch to get my seal mastery from sensei whilst I was living on MT Mayaboku with the toads. It is designed to provide an in-depth analysis of any disease or anything wrong with the body. It just finished analyzing your disease, so let's see what it has to say," he said before ripping the tag off his chest and taking a few chest hairs with it. The ink on the paper slowly changed to text. "Interesting. It isn't your fault for having this disease. According to this, it was injected via animal bite when you were younger. The medics probably thought that it was hereditary and just beginning in you, so they were misdiagnosing you. Tsunade should have noticed that if she wasn't drinking so much. The disease itself has no name that I am aware of, but originates deep in the land of swamps. It died off some time ago because no cure was found and is terminal. No human has ever had it, which is probably why you are still alive, because your immune system is working overdrive and is more advanced than a civilian's and animal's own immune system. I'd say you have another 10 years max before you die very painfully in the end." He finished delivering the sad news. Yugao looked horrified and placed her hands over her stomach, whilst Hayate and Yugito both took it with a pinch of salt, sensing a but somewhere soon. "But I may be able to cure you or prolong your life. I designed several other seals over my time away, and one of them basically transferred my chakra to another person over a set period of time with seals. Normally that would give a person chakra poisoning due to the chakra in the seal trying to rewrite a person's chakra presence, but with me, since I am the Kyubi Jinchuriki and my chakra is also part Uzumaki, it comes with an advanced healing rate that I can pass on to someone else temporarily via the seal. In other words, he finished whilst taking another seal out of his back pouch, wear this seal, starting from tomorrow for 1 month. Don't take it off ever and do no work that involves chakra, and by the end of the month your disease should be gone. I will run the test again to make sure, but it will either save your life or prolong it to old age. Old enough to see your family grow with you. He finished as a smile crossed both Yugao and Hayate's faces. Hayate leaned over to Yugao's ear and whispered something to her, and she smiled brightly even more so than before and nodded, Naruto. Hayate said, catching his attention. I know you have a lot on with raising your own child and the council, but you have done so much for both me and Yugao. I am alive today and will be in the future to see my family grow because of you. I owe you my life twice over. You are strong, and it would be to my and Yugao's greatest pleasure if you would accept being our unborn child's godfather. He finished coughing at the end and taking a breath of air. Naruto smiled. He didn't want anything for helping them both, but he would love to be there for their family in the future and readily agreed. I hate to cut this short, but I have a match with Sandaime Hokage now. Would you two like to come and watch? They both nodded, and he took everyone's hand and disappeared in a flash of red to his home. He really needed to place the seals for his father's move down already, because this was annoying. Ka-san, we're back. Mikoto came out of the kitchen and nodded, then greeted both Yugao and Hayate. He gave Kushina over to his mother whilst giving Yugito the flowers from earlier. Wait here for a minute, I'm going to change. They all nodded, wondering why he was going to change. He came down 5 minutes later looking like a ghost. Over the years his hair changed to a darker yellow, even more so than his father's own shade of yellow. He had cut off the ponytail with a wind-enhanced kunai for ease, so his hair was a tiny bit longer than his father's, but the bangs went down half his face instead of the full length hanging over his forehead protector. He was wearing baggy trousers that were a cross between white and beige, giving a silky look to them. His ankles were taped off up to his trousers, whilst he was wearing a black hoodie that was zipped up. Over his hoodie was an open jacket that looked like a remnants of a time long forgotten by the people hidden in the Leaf Village. An orange open jacket with black flames at the bottom, the outlining thread that went round the entire jacket was blood red, and on the back was kanji 4, Toad Sage. The arms of the jacket stopped just above his elbows, and each side of the jacket was held together by a red thread coming across his chest. On his right thigh he had a kunai pouch. On each arm at just below the elbow and wrist were a green band like his father's blue ones that hold the fabric in place. He was wearing his necklace that he got from his mother for his birthday when he was younger. Let's get going. They all nodded dumbly and grabbed onto him, not knowing what to say in the current situation. They disappeared in a flock of crows and reappeared at Training Ground 7. Sorry I'm late. I got lost on the road to life. He said whilst directing his family and loved ones over to the spectators bit. Say. Senior Sensei. He heard Kakashi stutter out. Nope, but try again? Naruto. You look exactly like your father, but with a different color scheme. I kind of noticed and figured it was time for a haircut, although the jutsu for my hair won't be nearly as effective with hair this length, but I have plenty others. He was interrupted by a clearing of the throat and looked over to Tsunade, unlike yesterday, and said, What? We are here to see you fight, not babble about your choice of clothes. She said with a tick mark. I really hope Kushina doesn't grow to be as annoying as you are at times, Tsunade. He said flatly whilst everyone there except Kushina and Yugito choked. He had balls of steel. He looked back over to the tree line to see his sensei laughing up a storm underneath a tree whilst Tsunade's vein throbbed about to explode. Listen here, yo. So who am I fighting again? He said, interrupting her to see how she liked it. The vein throbbed even harder. That would be me, Naruto-kun. A voice said. His face hardened immediately at the voice, and he turned round to see the Sandaime Hokage in his battle armor. Wow, you gotten old. Many rounds of slaps could be heard when palms hit faces. That happens when you disappear for 5, almost 6 years, Naruto, he said in a deadpan. Naruto created 4 shadow clones and had them go to the edge of the training grounds and place a barrier that was red. It reached the top of the trees, allowing for room to jump if need be, and stretched for 2 training fields for space and was blood red in color. What is the barrier for? Tsunade asked, but before anyone spoke, Jiraiya entered the conversation. It's for our protection. He is fighting seriously, and you don't want to fight him when he is serious. He replied without his usual tone. Inside the barrier the same conversation was going on. So what is the barrier for, Naruto-kun? He asked, already knowing. I care for my family more than anything. I will not harm them when I fight seriously. The Sandaime Hokage sighed and shook his head. You still haven't forgiven this old man for the council's actions? You were Hokage, missions had to go through you to be approved, which meant you must have approved it. Win this fight, old man, without sustaining any serious damage, and I will forgive you. He said in a slightly angry tone. So be it. And he fell into the stance for his personal fighting style that he created when he was younger, which revolved around using the terrain to your advantage. Unfortunately, Naruto knew this and intended to get rid of any terrain before the fight truly started. Let's dance, old man. He said as he held the horse hand sign and took a deep breath. At the same time, Jiraiya took a gasp of breath, hoping his sensei would be alright. Katan, Goka Mikyaku. A condensed stream of fire released from Naruto for 2 meters before spreading 30 meters high, reaching the top of the barrier and widening 20 meters. Everyone present knew this jutsu. He used it 5 years ago when he fought for Konoha in the invasion, destroying a huge chunk of the invasion force, but this time it was almost 3 times the strength. Unlike before, it seemed that he completed it. There was no way he was going to dodge, so he had to escape underground using Doton, Mogirigakur no Jutsu, Earth Release. Hiding like a mole, to appear after the flames had passed over his head, thus was safe to come out. He came out slowly and cautiously and looked around. The trees that were in the barrier earlier were destroyed and nothing but ash with little pits of fire here and there that were soon to be put out without sufficient matter to burn. Well, that was interesting. Looks like you completed the jutsu from a couple years ago. He received a nod in return. I removed the trees so you couldn't use them in your taijutsu style. I know you use the terrain, so I made it flat with nowhere to hide for an easier fight. He commented, making Sarutobi curse under his breath. He hadn't noticed that yet. Shall we skip taijutsu? You can't use yours effectively and have no doubt gotten slower than the last time, whilst I have gotten fast and stronger with better reflexes over the years. It would be unfair to you to continue the taijutsu portion of the test, and as I loathe to admit it, you aren't my enemy, so I won't fight you to the extremes anyway. He said with a sigh, getting a nod from the older man before said man bit his thumb and started going through hand seals at a fast pace, getting attention from Naruto. Kuchios no Jutsu. A monkey appeared wearing what looking like a zebra skin jacket with a belt around his waist and a Konoha forehead protector. The monkey looked to be taller than Sarutobi by an inch or two. Oh ho, this must be the great monkey king Enma I've heard so much about from my summons. He said with a smile. It was a rare opportunity to meet a boss summon in the field of battle and excited him to no end to see what these two were capable of, even if the monkey boss was smaller than most bosses. He was still a boss and was dangerous. Sarutobi, why have you summoned me? I don't see Orochimaru around, and you said you would summon me next time you fought him. Well, yes, but I'm fighting against Naruto, and he has gotten strong. I thought you would like to help me test his weapon strength. Oh, so the brat has grown up? Last time I saw him he was about a foot tall. I hear great things about him from the toads. He smiled whilst Jiraiya was grumbling, no respect even from my summons. What is this world coming to? Let's do this, Sarutobi. Henge, Kongonioi Enma. The monkey king transformed into a long 5-foot bowstaff that was white on each end and black in the middle and got into stance. Oh, we are going for weapons now, are we? He grinned to himself whilst getting a gulp from Sarutobi. That grin couldn't be good. Naruto proceeded to open his jacket and show the inside was lined with scrolls like a jonin flak vest. He removed a scroll and opened it whilst channeling some chakra. What came out surprised everyone except his traveling companions, instead of his famed chakra sabers that were mentioned within the bingo book. Now he had a war fan not unlike Madara Uchiha, but his fan was black on the inside, including a black handle with the outside a blood red color. On it were 4 symbols. In the top right was the Uchiha fan, in the top left was the Namake's emblem. A simple twister indicating the storm in which most of their members were known for, and the old Kekkei Genkai they had that died out a couple of decades ago called Storm Release. In the bottom left was the Uzumaki swirl, and in the bottom right was the emblem for Konoha, the leaf that sat upon their headbands. This war fan I had made, it is made out of Yuzu metal that I mined from Yuzu herself when I visited and studied at the secret Uzumaki archives for my Fuinjutsu mastery. I have several seals on it, and I have yet to find something that can break it. Even Orochimaru tried with his famed blade, and nothing happened. He explained, getting a raised eyebrow from everyone except his traveling friends. Why did Orochimaru try? Explain later. Let's just say he made it to the top of my shit list and will be killed soon, as my spy ring has found his location, which will be soon. Remind me to integrate my and Jiraiya's rings together sometime in the future. He finished. They both charged at each other after just a second's notice, both at low jonin speeds, just to get a feel for the other. Sarutobi had years of experience on him and his bowstaff was unbreakable, so the legend goes, whilst he had only wielded the gunbai for a few years and didn't have extreme amounts of time to practice it after Kushina was born. Sarutobi tried to end it quickly by going for his footing and hopefully damaging a leg to stop his speed, but Naruto wasn't such an amateur that this would happen. He used his gunbai as a third leg and with his left foot used the bow staff for balancing, then brought his right foot round to attempt to kick Sarutobi in the face with high speeds. Sarutobi leaned back and Naruto bounced backwards off the bow staff with his gunbai in his right hand. This could get annoying. Do you think I should get like a chain thing for my gunbai so I can always have it on hand? He asked, casually. Actually yes. You almost lost it there when you tried to jump away, which would have ended the weapons portion of the test. He concluded. You are frighteningly good with that bow staff. I guess the monkeys taught you their style, and with your experience of war it will be almost impossible to catch you off guard, won't it? He finished with a smile. He was enjoying himself. You are right again, Naruto-kun. I always forget what an analyst you were when you were younger, Naruto-kun. I hope you don't mind that I'm going to be a bit of a dick here and speed up a bit. His weights and resistance seals were long dropped. Even he didn't know what his top speed was with the seals off, because he never had to go that fast. He had long surpassed his father in speed and had stopped the training with his resistance seals simple due to the fact that if he leveled them any higher, then he would begin to tear his muscles too, frequently leaving him an eventual cripple. So he leveled them at 14 and refused to go any higher until he was older in a couple of years when his muscles were able to continue the training, but he really saw no immediate need for extreme speed like his own. He moved at high jonin pushing low sannin speeds to see if the old man could keep pace, and he was surprised by the fact that he could. He wasn't sure if he was pushing chakra or not since he hadn't activated his Sharingan yet, but was interested nonetheless. Naruto went for a slash downwards towards the old man, but it was blocked by Enma in bow staff form. Both were pushing against each other with incredible strength for either a young shinobi or almost impossible strength for an older shinobi like Sarutobi. You've been practicing the bow staff whilst I was away? I doubt you could have this type of body strength in old age. According to my clones, when you fought Orochimaru years ago you didn't. Sarutobi just smiled. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I knew you would come back stronger than the jonin of this village and either as strong or stronger than my students. It was just in your nature to get stronger to protect, but with my betrayal before you left, then you had nothing else to do but train to get your mind off it. You were bound to become strong, so I trained some. Let's see if you can keep up. He said, smiling the entire time as he channeled more wind chakra into the edge of his gunbai and used his right hand to push the other side of the gunbai, making it almost impossible to not fall to a knee. Before he fell to a knee, Sarutobi kicked Naruto in the stomach, providing him a free moment to jump away, and as Naruto was flipping in the air to get upright he saw Sarutobi throwing several ninja stars and using the Kage Shuriken no Jutsu to turn 10 into 50. Naruto blinked before he out of reflex activated his Sharingan and moved at a faster speed to block the incoming ninja stars with his gunbai. As the stars bounced off of the gunbai, Naruto swung the gunbai using a low-level futon, Daitapa, to send the ninja stars back to their senders with a fast pace. With too many stars coming to block with Enma without getting hit by a stray ninja star, Sarutobi smashed Enma's staff form into the ground so it stood upright before going through several hand seals. For a very basic earth jutsu to make in wall of earth to block an incoming attack, Doton, Dorihiki. A wall of earth rose out of the ground in front of them both and Sarutobi heard lots of little thuds indicating that all the stars had made contact with the wall. He let go of the chakra flowing to the wall and it fell back into the ground, ninja stars, and all whilst Naruto placed his gunbai on his back via a chakra seal his head that held anything in place as long as chakra was provided. Well, it looks like I won that round, Sarutobi, eh? What do you mean? He asked confusedly. I made you abandon your main weapon of choice for a jutsu. You've lost the weapons round. He hated to admit it, but Naruto was right. He had hoped that the ninja stars would catch him off balance and do a little damage to slow him down, but it backfired against him. Fine, Enma, you can go now. I lost the weapons battle fair and square. He said with a childish pout on his face at being outsmarted and getting a nod of understanding from Enma, whom disappeared in a poof of smoke back to his home world. Next lesson? Agreed, ninjutsu, it is. Let's see how good you are, Naruto-kun. He said with a smile at the end. Me? What about you? You're meant to be known as the professor. I want to see how extensive your knowledge is. He said, oh, and congratulations. You forced me to use my Sharingan with that little ninja star trick of yours earlier. I hadn't enough time to block safely without it, so well done, but you are going to regret it now. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Two clones appeared beside Naruto. One of them disappeared in a poof of smoke, like it dispelled, getting a raised eyebrow from the crowd, whilst the second and first done two different seals ending for a different jutsu each. futon, de tapa, whilst the second Naruto breathed in a breath and exhaled, forming a giant flaming dragon that spun around itself 3 times before a dragon's head formed and roared, spitting 17 balls of flame that were enhanced by the wind of the previous jutsu. When the balls touched the ground, they exploded and expanded with flames to create a carpet of destruction. This jutsu was created by Naruto during some downtime when he was thinking about the elemental dragon techniques that resided in different nations. He felt that they could be improved upon and came up with this after a while. Combined with a wind jutsu, and you have a very deadly attack. Barely having time to set up an earth wall, Sarutobi done the next best thing, which was to create an earth platform where the balls of flame couldn't reach, providing a safe haven from the attack or so. He thought, as the platform rose high into the sky, putting him on a pedestal. The clone that he though dispelled earlier appeared from beneath him, most likely using the same earth technique he used earlier to escape from Naruto, and exploded in his face. Naruto may have strongly disliked the man for what he done, but that was no means a reason to kill him, so he powered it down enough just to knock him unconscious from either the blast or the fall to earth he was about to get. The onlookers watched, including the hidden ANBU guards, as the Sandaime Hokage fell to the ground unconscious, with a thump. Silence reigned as Naruto smiled and ordered his clones to let the barrier go, then dispel. No one moved except Kushina and Yugito, who ran over to him and gave him a hug, or in Kushina's case a sloppy kiss on the cheek, as he picked her up and twirled her round, saying, "Well, aren't you Daddy's little princess?" with mild amusement. Apparently Dad was the favorite out of her parents, which he was totally fine with. "Ugh, Tsunade, you might want to check on him? You are a medic, aren't you, or have you drank too much and forgotten how to mold chakra?" he said with a disarming smile which snapped everyone out of their stupor. "Brat!" she shouted, clearly not amused with his comment, and then went to check on her master. He walked over to his family and friends, getting a congratulations from them and a what the fuck from Kakashi and Yugao, who seemed to remember their Hokage being a lot stronger than that when he fought Orochimaru years ago. "Well done, brat, you didn't even need sage mode, just incredibly sneaky tactics," Jiraiya said with a bright smile. They wouldn't have worked if he was still an active shinobi of Kage level. His instincts have dulled down a bit, and so have his reflexes, but that's expected with age, he said sagely, whilst the others nodded, and Kakashi was happy he didn't have to battle the blonde earlier. "Oh, that reminds me, sensei, come back in 6 months, and I will give you the seal that controls my spy network so it can be activated by your blood and chakra in case I'm not available. That should give Konoha's spy master an easier time, sensei?" he said whilst nudging him in the ribs. Jiraiya smiled in return, but was interrupted before he could speak. "Well done, brat. He has a few fractures, a small case of chakra exhaustion, due to not actively using chakra like most shinobi, but apart from that he is fine and you won, so congratulations on your Jonin promotion." "Jonin? I was a genin, wasn't I?" he asked confusedly. "No, you were a chunin when you left, you just happened to leave before you could be told due to the council meeting you called." "Oh. I was a chunin for 5 years and didn't know it." He snickered to himself. "I'll take a genin team Tsunade if you got one, a Nara and 2 civilians should do it. The Nara for leadership when I can't, and the 2 civilians for brute force. When I'm done, they will be owning the chunin exams," he said with a small smirk that all Uchiha men seem to have present on their faces all the time, except his comes out every now and then. "Fine, it just so happens that a class just graduated recently and I didn't have enough Jonin to go around. It also happens that a lone Nara girl was in the class. She couldn't be part of another Ino Shikacho trio due to being the only one of the 3 present in the class. That's fine, I'll pick them up Monday at class. By Tsunade. Oh, one more thing before I go, tell the old man he is forgiven. I hardly ever get such a decent fight anymore, so it's the least I can do," he said with a smile before flashing his family away. "Brat's annoying as hell, but he's got style," she muttered before leaving herself and the ANBU to take her sensei home. 3 days later, Monday, the first day of his Jonin sensei career. The sun just hated him right now as it shined brightly in his windows, telling him it was time to wake up. Looking down, he saw a half-naked Yugito laying with her head on his chest. Just the sight of her made his heart skip a beat. She was his perfection in every way, and he would die to protect his family. He remembered a time when he was conversing with his godfather about how shinobi measure their legends that are to be told through the ages to come. A shinobi's legend is told through their deaths. They could stand against an army and win, but when they die a good death worthy of their legend, people forget about their life's work and focus only on how they died. He was damn sure of his skills, and was even more sure that he wouldn't die to leave his daughter to grow up alone, but just in case he had been setting shadow clones aside since he was back to write down all his knowledge from his shinobi life and experience to place in the library for his daughter should something happen to him. Slowly getting out of bed and getting dressed, he walked tiredly towards the kitchen where he met his mother looking just as tired, both not having had their morning coffee yet. Morning, Ka-san. Morning, you get your new genin team today? Yes, expect them to come round every now and then for dinner, he said with a smile. He was looking forward to giving his knowledge to some genin who would one day most likely have some sort of high ranking within the village, since he was getting the infamous Team 7 that always ended up as legends. Making some breakfast before departing to the Hokage's office to watch his new team with the other Jonin senseis through the crystal ball that the Sandaime had given to Tsunade for a welcoming present. Entering the office, he found himself being stared at by all the Jonin senseis. He found Kurenai and Asuma amongst the new sensei, so he assumed that their old team were Jonin or at least Chunin. They were both looking a bit older, and Asuma had a few gray hairs here and there in his beard, but otherwise looked the same as he remembered. Sup? They all just stared blankly at him, still not believing the rumors that were going around about him and how he beat the Sandaime Hokage in battle. Okay, stop staring now, it's getting old. Let's see my cute genin team of misfits? He walked over to the crystal ball and saw his team, one Nara who looked as lazy as the rest and two civilian boys who looked excited about finally becoming genin. He smiled. The two boys reminded him of himself when he was younger and just becoming a ninja. With that in mind, he decided he would pass them without the test. He saw greatness in his team. Hokage-sama. Everyone stopped looking at the ball in front of them and looked towards himself. What brat? Team 7 passes. I will pay for a 6-month D-rank mission for my team with me as the client. If you need a reason for the mission, then just say they will be keeping my compound clean. He finished with a nice smile like his former sensei and older brother figure. Tsunade developed an eye twitch at how he was debasing some of the oldest traditions of the Jonin senseis. What do you mean, brat? You haven't even met them yet? Well, I saw them through the ball and I'm quite happy with how they are talking to each other and they seem friends, so teamwork is fine. That's not what I meant. I meant why the D-ranked mission? Oh, that? I am a firm believer that the academy is shit, so I will take the 6 months when they are meant to be doing D-ranked missions to get their level up, and then, depending on how they do, I will take them on some C-ranked missions and recommend them for the Chunin exams. It's been a while, aren't they hosted here again this year, Tsunade? That, I am annoyed to say, is actually a good idea, and yes, they're hosted here again in around 8 months. Good, in that case I shall be on my way to pick up my little team of misfits. He finished with a wave of his hand and disappeared in a flash of light to one of the pre-placed flying thunder god tags that his clones had already placed around the village for ease, and reappeared outside the academy. He walked into the academy with a calm board-like walk and knocked on the door just in time to hear Irika finish speaking. Team 7 is Shirkunara, Mino, no last name, and Ken, no last name. Your sensei is. He finished looking at the name and started stuttering in surprise. Naruto Uchiha Namikaze. Everyone lifted their heads at that. The son of the 4th Hokage and an Uchiha, they were the greatest sensei you could get according to their childlike views. He chose that moment to walk in the door. Yo, he said with a wave and a nice smile. Now where are my little team of misfits? Raise your hands, Team 7, he finished in a calm yet commanding tone. Instantly 3 hands went up, even the lazy Nara girl raised her hand, without the word troublesome. Good, meet me on the roof and we will have introductions, be there in less than 5 minutes. He said and shunshined in a flock of crows to the roof, leaving a room full of surprised genin. They all ran out of the room and went to the roof as fast as they can and arrived in just under 4 minutes, which surprised him, but he kept a stoic face. Alright, good timing, let's begin with introductions. I'll start. My name is Naruto Uchiha Namikaze, but I am also part Uzumaki. I like my family. I dislike those who would seek to harm my family and my dream to be able to retire without worry that my enemies will hurt my family. You next, Shirku. Troublesome, my name is Shirkunara. I like cloud watching and I dislike rushing my dreams? I don't really have one at the moment, so we will see in the future. Okay, next, Mino. My name is Mino. I don't know my parents, and I'm an orphan from what I presume is a civilian family, so I hope to become a well-known shinobi. I like my friends and training. I dislike arrogant people with elitist attitudes, and I already said my dream. Very well, last is Ken. My name is Ken, and like Mino, I'm an orphan. My parents died in the Suna/Oto invasion years ago. I like my memories of my family and friends. I dislike Oto immensely, and my dreams for the future would be to settle down when I'm older and have a semi-large family. Okay, good, there may be a time when we face Oto forces in the future. This is your one warning: if you disobey me when in the field, I will have your chakra sealed and thrown out of the ranks for insubordination. Ken shrunk into himself as he weakly nodded his head in affirmation. Good, now let me explain some things. Usually, you would have a secondary test to see how you work together before you become genin, but I have chosen to forego this test due to the fact that I know you are all friends from U-File, so teamwork shouldn't be an issue. For the next 6 months, you will be training with me, as I told Tsunade. I am a firm believer that the academy is shit and teach wrong, so we will train and then do C-rank missions, and the occasional B-rank mission before I enter you in the Chunin exams in 8 months. Depending on what level you are all at. Any questions? Shirku raised her hand. We aren't in the academy anymore, no raising hands, just ask. Naruto stated, getting a nod from the young Nara. Since we aren't at the academy anymore, and we are meant to be doing D-rank missions to earn income, how will my teammates survive without the orphan stipend they stopped getting when they became genin? Good question, you just made yourself the strategist on the team when I'm not available. The answer is simple. The next 6 months is going to be a long as D-rank mission where at the end of each month you will get a month's worth of D-rank pay, but don't worry, you guys are my team, meaning you are family. You're more than welcome to come over to mine for dinner anytime. They all nodded and the 2 orphans each had a smile on their face. Right, the day is still young, so I will give you a rough outlay of the next 3 months of training, and then we will reschedule the next 3 months after that to see what needs more focus and what doesn't. First month is quite simple. I will work you into the ground on chakra control to not only build your reserves, but also strengthen your coils and stamina that you will receive by using chakra excessively. You will all be getting a seal placed on you that will disrupt your chakra flow and force it to be piss poor once you master the basic chakra control exercises, and every time you get it back up I will remove it for a day to allow you to get used to it, then reapply it. This will also expand your chakra reserves. Any questions on the first month? Once again, Shirku raised her hand but then put it down, remembering what he said before, and asked, how do you know so much about seals to apply such an advanced one? I'm a seal master, like my father and godfather. Any other questions? None. Okay, then second month is where we start to get into the more physical side of a shinobi lifestyle. You will all learn my taijutsu style, which is one of the best in the village. I created it when I was younger and is called the hummingbird. No matter what, you will not teach this style to anyone unless you have my express permission, which at the moment I will not grant. I will make you speed demons. I am a firm believer in the fastest shinobi is the strongest. If they can't touch you, then they can't kill you. For this to work, I will give each of you chakra weights at the start of the second month, and depending on how you do I will also add a resistance seal that makes it feel like you are always running through water. Naruto finished and the 3 students paled, since that sounded more like torture rather than training. Seeing no questions, he decided to finish up his 3-month training regiment. Month 3 is the fun bit, ninjutsu training. I have the Sharingan and know lots of techniques from most elements, and have created loads myself, which I will pass on to you 3 as my students. Make no mistake, you 3 will be legends the likes this world have never seen, but you have to work for it. Nothing in this life is free, and we are shinobi, which is a life of sacrifice. You must be prepared to sacrifice your time, sweat, and tears for strength. Sadist. Shirku mumbled under her breath, causing Naruto to smile. Naruto pulled a scroll from his sage jacket that he wore and opened it, producing 3 of his tri-pronged kunai and 3 leather-strapped books that looked like journals. He handed one of each to his students, getting a raised eyebrow. Throughout my life I have bled and killed for this village. In fact, the Suna/Oto invasion, we were going to be overrun by a secondary army of 1,000 shinobi from Suna and Oto. I was the only one who knew about it at the time and didn't have enough time to inform anyone, so I summoned the big 3 of the Toad clan from their homes to take care of the invading summons whilst I faced down an army of 1,000 strong on my own. I killed them all and left only one alive to deliver a message to Suna about betraying us again. I am haunted by the men I've killed. They come to me in my sleep. This is only part of the sacrifice that I have made for this village. The journals are for you to write down about your training. I expect you to write in them once a week, and once we start taking missions, I expect you 3 to write a brief overview of the mission, obviously without mentioning specifics. I find that this keeps the dreams away and honors the men I've killed for their sacrifices they gave their country. To die protecting what you love is a shinobi's greatest honor and curse, remember that. All 3 nodded in understanding, but then asked about the kunai. I am a namikaze, and as such have mastered my father's jutsu, the Hiraishin no Jutsu, to an almost inexpressible level. You are expected to keep the kunai on you at all times so I can reach you should something happen. He said in a commanding voice, once again getting nods of understanding. The 3 genin placed the kunai and journals in their pouches. Now the day is still young, so why don't I show you your first chakra control exercise? Not waiting for a response, he walked over to a tree with the genin in tow. For a rookie genin such as yourselves, the most difficult place to move the chakra in your body is the bottom of the feet, but shinobi using it in such a way every day, so it is taken for granted and is one of the first skills a shinobi should learn. Observe. He calmly walked up the tree, leaving 3 stupid-looking genin with open mouths. He hung upside down on the lowest branch so he could still talk to them. Channel chakra to your feet and run up the tree, he said whilst throwing a kunai at each of their feet. Too much and you blast off the tree, too little and you slip and fall. No one will catch you, so be careful. If you get to the top by the end of the day, and I see that your control is adequate and reserves large enough, then I will teach you 3 a basic jutsu that ninja use every day, he said, smiling as he dropped to the floor and leaned against a tree not too far away and begun writing in his own journal about his genin team whilst smiling at the attempts the genin were making. It became apparent rather quickly that Shirku had medium reserves and high control, as most of her clan's genin did, due to the amount of chakra and control it took to manipulate shadows like they did. Mino had the largest reserves of the 3 and poorest control, something that made no sense if his parents were civilians, which made him think that they were ninja but non-clan ninja. Naruto turned on his Sharingan to watch him get a few steps up the tree and then fall due to using too much chakra. He shook his head and deactivated his Sharingan. His third and last student seemed to be rather level-headed and reminded him of himself when he was younger. He seemed to think outside the box. He watched as Ken stood a foot of the ground exactly like he did when he was younger, getting a feel for the amount of chakra needed before trying to move up the tree, getting just under a quarter the way up before falling. He smiled. He was going to like his new team. 3 hours passed and it was almost lunchtime. He didn't need his Sharingan to see that his genin were running on fumes. To be honest, he was rather surprised at the fact that they had lasted this long with the exercise. Each genin had made it just above halfway and they seemed to be getting frustrated, so he decided to give them a break. "Alright, come down and come over here," he shouted as he put his journal away. He always liked writing in it, and strangely enough, he hadn't needed it until his training trip, which gave him the idea that it was something to do with the incident he had before leaving for his trip with his godfather. The genin waddled over to him. The tree had a nice bit of shade and the sun was burning strong for the summer. "Sit down and enjoy a break, guys. I will go get you lunch and bring it here for you, then we will continue. This will give you a chance to regenerate your chakra reserves," he said, getting a nod before all 3 collapsed under a tree. Grinning, he got up and shunshin to the dango stand. "Hey Shiro, can I get 4 of the Anko special please?" "You must be hungry to get all that just for yourself?" the man named Shiro who owned the store said. "Nah, I got a new genin team and I made them exhaust their chakra, so I thought I would get them lunch whilst they had a break," he finished, smiling. Shiro was one of the people that never said anything bad to him when he was younger, much like the Ichiraku family, but he hardly ever came here due to his reputation in his younger days. Shiro nodded and prepared the order whilst Naruto took out his money to pay. "Thanks man, you're a lifesaver," he said before sunshining with his dango bag to the Nara compound. He made his way to Shikamaru's house, where the clan head and his family stayed, and knocked. Shikaku answered the door and was surprised to see the infamous Naruto Uchiha Namikaze that was so popular nowadays. "Can I help you, Naruto? Can I come in? Some things need to be talked about in private," he said ominously, without knowing he had piqued the interest of the man. Opening the door further, he let himself in as they walked to the living room, which his wife was residing in at the moment. "Hello Yoshino-san," Naruto said, getting her attention. "Naruto-san." Sitting down, all 3 descended into an awkward silence before Shikaku decided to break it. "What can I do for you today, Naruto?" "I recently took a genin team," he said, getting their attention. He made it clear to the council that he wasn't planning on teaching anyone his secrets. "I requested a team and there were 3 orphans in the class, so I decided to take them as a team and make them legends," he finished with a smile. "That's nice," Yoshino said, not really caring but trying to be polite. "I'll get to the point. This is obviously semi-awkward for us. Who are Shirku Nara's current carers, since I know she is an orphan?" he asked, getting their attention. "My family. She is the daughter of Yoshino's friend, so we took her in after they died when she was younger." "Why? Don't take this the wrong way, but she doesn't seem like the typical Nara." "Explain," Shikaku said, taking a little offense to that. "She is smart, incredibly so, but she seems very applied in her training, unlike other Nara I've seen. I'm just wondering if there is anything that caused that." Shikaku sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Naras tend to be lazy until they get a wake-up call, usually by something happening in the field. Like Shikamaru for instance, got his when Sasuke left and he was made captain of the retrieval squad. Everyone came back with critical injuries except him. He realized that he had been slacking in his training, and although he was made Chunin hadn't put the effort in to actually acquire new skills. She got hers when her parents died. Oh, that's terrible. It is. Well, I gave her a standing invitation like the rest of my team to come over to mine for dinner anytime. We are a team and therefore family. He said, getting a smile from Yoshino. One more thing before I go. I've observed your clan's shadow manipulation and come to the conclusion that it is a Kekkei Genkai that relies on shape manipulation. Am I correct? He asked with a knowing look in his eye. You are. Okay then, I was just deciding if I should get her started on shape manipulation at a later date. Thanks, bye. He said before disappearing in a red flash and reappearing outside Tsunade's office. He walked in and waved to an irate Tsunade doing paperwork. Yo Tsunade. He said, getting her attention. What brat? Can't you see I'm busy? She moaned. I'm here to pick up my team's D-rank mission that I filed for this morning. He smiled, annoying her. She tossed the scroll at him and he left, but not before saying, shadow clones are incredibly useful, don't you think, Tsunade? And disappeared in a red flash towards his Genin's beacon. I'm back, here's lunch, eat and then continue. He said, giving each of them a box of dango whilst he had his own. They ate in relative silence as they just enjoyed the quiet and food. The boys were first to finish before continuing, and then Shirku joined them. By the end of the day the Genin almost made it to the top. It was more than enough to impress him, so he decided to reward them and called them over once again. You three have done good work today. I am rather impressed. It seems that given the right incentive you three can find the determination to meet the challenge placed in front of you. He said, earning a tired stare from his students. He produced 3 small scrolls and handed one to each of them. This contains a jutsu that is D-ranked, but is a supplementary jutsu used by all ninja regularly called Shunshin no Jutsu. One of my clan before it was exterminated was called Shunshin no Shusui across the nations due to his combat version of this technique. Your reserve should be large enough to use this once or twice, but no more than 50 meters distance from the starting point. When you complete it and your reserves are big enough, I will give you its older brother that I created called the Flash Step. I made it so my family can transition from the high speeds of the advanced Shunshin to the Hiraishin. I don't use it that often so no one knows about it. You aren't going to learn Hiraishin ever, so don't get your hopes up. He finished with a smile. They nodded, work on this in your own time and no more than 50 meters before I tell you otherwise. He smiled before disappearing in a red flash, leaving his extended family to find their own way home. This was all for this part, thanks for watching. Comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. Go watch some of the other fics uploaded. See ya.